Hello folks, and welcome back to my channel, Civil War Reports. I am your War of the Rebellion reporter, Brian Thomas Kopak, and today I got a special treat for you. We are in Gettysburg, and we are going to be going inside the Tillie Pierce house bed and breakfast. Tillie Pierce was your average, everyday 15-year-old girl in South Central Pennsylvania until the war came home. And luckily for us, this young lady, about 30 years after the battle, wrote her memoirs and told us all of the things she did and saw before and during and after the Battle of Gettysburg. So, special treat today. We're going to go inside, we're going to meet the owner, Susan, and we're also going to meet the manager and chef. Should you treat yourself to a stay here at the Tillie Pierce house bed and breakfast. So, without any further ado, as they would say, let's go inside the Tillie Pierce house bed and breakfast. Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. I am here inside the Tillie Pierce house with the owner, Susan. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Great to meet you. Great to see you. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to be talking about this book, At Gettysburg, or What a Girl Saw and Heard of the Battle of Gettysburg by Miss Tillie Pierce. Let's start off by just talking about Tillie herself. Here she is. What do we know about her? She was, approximately 15 years old at the start
Correct.
of the battle. She was born, that would put her around 1848. And she was born and raised in this house, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a home she knew really her whole life until she, moves on in life, gets married. We'll talk about that later on. So, what can we say about her life? What was her family like?
Well, they were prosperous in terms of that period. Her father was a successful businessman. They didn't want for food or,
He was a provider.
He was a provider, hardworking.
Very good. So for the most part, she's just your average Pennsylvania girl up until the war literally comes home.
Yes. She attended a girls' school,
Okay.
which was about 2 blocks from here. So she was educated, and it was an upper middle class family in today's terms.
All right. You said the father was a butcher.
Yes.
So the war starts, and she has two older brothers.
Correct.
And they go on and serve for the Union Army.
Correct.
And do they survive the war?
They both survived the war.
Excellent.
In fact, their father, who owned property behind this building, built a duplex, and the two boys, when they came home, had housing that was independent of their dad, but still within arm's reach.
Gotcha. Okay. Did they work for the father before or after the war?
I suspect before. I do not know after.
Okay. Okay. So the war literally comes home.
Correct.
June 26th, 1863. Jubal Early's division comes into town. Okay, I have a special affection towards Jubal Early because he did walk in front of my house prior to coming to Gettysburg. Story goes he entered the house. He comes to town. What is the reaction of the townspeople here? What is Tillie doing?
Well, this is a small community at that point. It's nothing like we see today. And there was a lot of angst, I'm sure, in the local civilian population. What was going to happen? How were their lives going to be changed, affected, and some excitement.
So where was Tillie at the time of the Confederates approaching?
Well, she was here.
Okay.
Her parents were not excited about her being in the town. They wanted to seek out a little bit more safe environment for her. So the next door neighbors, they had parents that lived outside of town on a farm. So they encouraged Tillie to go with them out to the farm so that she would be safer.
Okay, that was on July 1st.
Yes.
Okay. According to her own book, the night before, her and her sister made bouquets of flowers to give to the soldiers. And,
To the federal soldiers.
To the federal soldiers, yes, yes. But July 1st rolls around, it's very hectic, and she kind of forgot about that, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So she goes to the Weichert farm outside of town.
Which is directly under the Round Tops.
Right behind Little Round Top.
Yeah.
Now, just so the audience knows, that's private residence now, to the best of my knowledge, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's not open to the public, folks. You could drive by and look at it, and there's a sign out front advertising the house, but don't stop and knock on the door because it's private. So she goes there thinking it's going to be safe. Now,
What her parents sent her there thinking she would be safer there than here
in the town. Well, I mean, they meant well. But I gotta say, reading this book, some of it is almost like too surreal to be true, but obviously it is. I mean, like, she just happens to be in like the right places at the right time. She's going down Tawnytown Road. I mean, according to this, she goes down Baltimore Street, cuts through Evergreen Cemetery,
Yes.
while Union artillerymen are setting up cannon, and they're telling her, get out, you're not safe here, you may get shelled. She goes down Tawnytown Road, it's knee deep in mud, a wagon passes by that has the body of John Reynolds in it. So that's almost like, then she spends some time at a house that ends up being Meade's headquarters. Later, I think it was on July 2nd, she gives a drink of water to General Meade, not realizing it's General Meade, the commander of the army. I mean, a lot of this is like almost too surreal to be true.
Well, Gettysburg was a fairly small town, so it was compact. People knew each other. She obviously was a little bolder than some young women would be at that age.
That's true.
And much more confident. And you can see it in her face. She's
Yeah, very confident looking woman.
correct.
So it's July 1st. She's at her neighbor's relative's house, and at that point she's got to be kind of dirty. I mean, walking down Tawnytown Road. I mean, they said it was like knee deep in mud. And if I remember correctly, she leaves home here with only the clothes on her back.
That is my understanding from the book.
Okay.
She does not talk about taking traveling bags or anything like that.
Right. So she gets there, and what are her duties when she gets to the Weichert house?
Well, they needed hands. They needed people to be able to help the wounded. And she's only 15 years old, which by today's standard is still young.
Young, yeah.
In that period of time, she was probably considered a little more adult-like. But she's a 15-year-old girl, and working with the nursing staff to help comfort the wounded and to do what she could to make their lives sweeter. She did.
Okay. According to the book, she does tend to a famous artilleryman,
Yes.
and not even realizing who he is.
Yes.
And according to her, she really offers comfort to Weed in his final hours.
Yes.
And he asks her to make a promise to her.
Mm-hmm.
She's caring for him, and it's the night of July 2nd. He's been wounded very badly, and all he wants is for her to come and visit her
The
the next day. And does she?
Yes, she does.
And unfortunately, what happens?
She passed.
It passed away during the night. But it just kind of makes me think of what an angel of mercy she must have been in those, in that hour.
Well, look at the face. I mean, she's a sweet young woman. These men are far away from home. They're engaged in traumatic activity, and having a little sister or as a comfort, that would be very meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a very sweet face. She's very attractive young woman. So, what man would want that?
No, I certainly I couldn't refuse. Could not refuse. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's almost like she meets all, these important people who have gone down in history, and it's like almost too surreal to be like true, but it all is. All is. So she's at the Weichert house on the third day,
Yes.
right, during the Great Cannonade. The battle's over, and she starts to make her way back towards home. She's walking across the battlefield. She arrives home, and what's her parents' reaction?
Well, they're obviously grateful that she's safe, that she's home, that they can wrap their arms around her again and move on.
Right. So yeah, I guess they sent her literally to safety, although they probably had earful upon earful upon earful of stories she could tell. I mean, obviously she's was able to put it in a book. Now this house itself was the hospital for a famous colonel who fought here on July 2nd, 1st Minnesota. Can you talk about that experience?
Well, it was not unusual that locals would take wounded soldiers in because there was not enough facilities to deal with the number of casualties. And they did have the colonel. And they nursed him back to health, and he wound up actually returning several years later to visit with them.
That's nice. That's great.
Yeah.
And if I also remember correctly, Camp Letterman, which was set up outside of town.
Correct.
What little bit is left of it is now being turned into an Aldi's. The acreage, the land that Camp Letterman was on, there's going to be an episode on Camp Letterman. We're also going to talk about the 1st Minnesota, too. There's a marker out front, and then there's, for years, just a field behind it, and now that field is being turned into a Aldi's. And yeah. Okay, but anyway, I digress. She did visit the soldiers out there, too, for a while, correct?
Yes.
She did. So she really could not get away from that nursing aspect of her.
I think it's nursing, but it's comforting. It's what people did in that period of time.
So she was more of a comfort provider than, I guess, a medical provider, or a little bit of both.
Probably a little bit of both, but she was not a nurse.
Right. In the true sense.
True sense, yes.
Okay.
But that bright face, I mean, it would help anyone who was suffering.
Yes, if I was, not feeling good, yes. Very attractive young lady, she really was, yes. Now, if I remember correctly, she does get some war souvenirs. Can we talk about those for a moment?
Sure.
Okay.
It's part of my favorite aspect of Tillie because she becomes a foot-stomping 15-year-old child. And I love it, and I'm so grateful that she put that in to this book that she penned because it does give you a balance. We tend to think of her as an angel of mercy, someone intended. She was also a 15-year-old girl, and she was not happy when they came and took what she'd been given. And she acts like a foot-stomping young girl, which balances out her personality. And I'm so grateful that she was willing to share that with us when she wrote the book, which she was 43 at that point.
Right. So what was that story? She got a sword or musket or something? Yeah, and then the government came wanting their war materials back, and does she end up getting the sword, keeping the sword?
They take it.
Okay. Well, the government came and took stuff away from people. That's hard to believe. Okay.
Imagine that.
Yes.
But they do return it.
They do return
it. It is returned to the city.
Do we know where that is now, by any chance?
I have no idea.
No, it's been lost to history,
not the house.
unfortunately. It's been lost. Sorry. Lost to history. Okay, so just briefly, what happens to her after the war?
Well, she grows up here in Gettysburg, finishes, and then she actually winds up marrying a student from Gettysburg College.
Okay.
And he becomes, I believe, a lawyer. and they move out of the area, and they raise a family. But the house, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate about this. The house was actually gifted to her from her parents.
Okay.
Much later in life, but she was 43 when she wrote the book.
43, so almost 30 years later.
Yeah.
Does she have any children?
I believe she did,
Okay.
and
Yeah, because this book doesn't, have a.
my recollection from the research we did, years ago, is that her family, direct descendants, were in Texas.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that one.
Right.
But I think that's accurate.
And if I remember correctly, she lives to 1914.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You may or may not know this answer because I don't. Do you know if she was here for the 50th anniversary, the big 50th?
She did come back.
She did come back. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And if you look hard enough, there are some photos.
Of her in.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. One final question. Anybody who studied Gettysburg knows there was only one civilian death. Yes. Jenny Wade. Going back to June 26th, she mentions in here when her favorite horse is being commandeered by the Confederate Army. She's pleading, and she sends a boy named Sam to try to get the horse back. And she mentions Sam's sister, but only that way, by Sam's sister. Are we talking about Jenny Wade?
Yes.
Okay. What is the relation? Yes.
Not good.
My next question took the words out of my mouth. What was the relationship between Tillie and Jenny Wade?
There was some conflict between the two young women.
Okay, Jenny's a little bit older, about 5 or so years older.
Yeah.
We have no idea the origins of that.
Nothing that I have read really speaks to that point.
Okay.
But they were not good friends. They were not particularly social to one another. And I think Tillie's words was she died. That was it.
Okay, well, okay, very nice young lady. I mean, she didn't
No.
muddy the waters. Okay, definitely would not have made it on some of the gossip TV today. Okay. Well, I mean, I do thank you for that. Can we talk about the house a little bit here?
Sure.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so this is now a functioning bed and breakfast.
It is.
Okay, how many rooms do you have total here?
We have 5 bedrooms, and then we have one that is kind of a conversion, and it's more of a suite type of.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. So somebody comes here. I mean, we're sitting in one of the sitting rooms. The parlor's over there. What I've seen, it's beautiful. I mean, the inside is beautiful. Got some really nice artwork in here. Are they all have private baths, shared baths?
Yes, private.
All private. Okay, that's excellent.
Yes.
That's a big,
Plus.
Yes, it's a
Yes.
very big plus.
In Europe, it wouldn't be such a big deal.
Right, yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah, Europe, yeah, it's no big deal. But I gotta tell you, I mean, it's a beautiful house. We're located right here on Baltimore Street.
Correct.
This is the house Jenny Wade grew up in. Do you have a website for people to come and check it out?
We do. Mark, our manager, will be the provider of that information.
Okay, we're gonna talk to Mark. He's also the chef, he told me.
Yes.
If you come here and stay, and I highly recommend it. Gentlemen, you're gonna see in a few minutes. He will also prepare your breakfast for you. Okay, right here on the main street. I mean, just a few blocks down is Steinway Avenue. A few blocks up is the square. Lots of great places to eat around this area.
There are.
There are. Also, the good news is if you come to Gettysburg and you want to have a drink or two, you don't have to worry about driving back. You can just close by. You can walk. All right.
It is accessible.
It is accessible, yes. I want to thank you very much for this. I really do appreciate it, telling the story of Miss Tillie Pierce and a little bit about Miss Jenny Wade. There's going to be an episode on her, too. All right, Susan, I do thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to meet Mark. All right, folks, we're here in the dining room of the Tillie Pierce house. I'm here with Mark. He is the manager and the chef here. So if you do come to the Tillie Pierce house, you'll be sitting at this table. Musket in the background, or what's left of that musket in the background. And So what could folks expect here for breakfast here?
For breakfast, I pretty much, if it's a small load, I go personally and ask what they'd like. But if we have a lot of people, we're going to go buffet. It's much easier.
Buffet?
Because we can have anywhere from 12 to 16 people, so.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Wow. Okay.
I want to know everybody wants to get fed and get out of the battlefield, so I try to do breakfast as early. I ask, if you want an early breakfast, fine. If you want a later breakfast, that's fine too.
Oh wow. Okay. So it's not a set. Yeah, I remember when I went to a bed and breakfast up in Canada by Niagara Falls for my honeymoon, and it was, boom, this window here. It was a very small window.
Yeah, I like to try to keep people happy.
That's nice.
Everybody's got a different agenda.
Okay.
And if you can accommodate everybody, make them happy, then you'll see them again next year.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
That
That's
is.
all about. One personal question. I'm not a
Sure.
coffee drinker. Do you offer teas?
Yes, I do.
All right. Herbals?
Herbals, you name it, we've got it.
Nice.
I actually lived in Ireland, so I have some berries tea, which is an Irish brand.
Okay.
So,
For people who may want to plan a visit here, what time of year are you most busiest? What are your most busiest weekends?
we start April until right after Christmas.
And you're booked all the way through, pretty much. Yeah, I mean,
there's little windows in this during the week, which is good.
Okay, during the week.
But right now, it's like Valentine's Day. We're packed full, and we might have one person in the middle of the week.
Okay,
For the next
okay.
3 or 4 weeks. So.
Yeah, I mean, we get some pretty busy weekends here. I mean, between July 4th
Okay.
and then after that, we got the Bike Fest. And then definitely in October, we got the Apple Harvest Festival.
Yeah.
And then we got the colleges always having some sort of like Parents Weekends, alumni
we have
weekends.
Remembrance Weekend.
Remembrance Day weekend in November.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Actors Appreciation, which is in March. Coming
Yep.
up, so.
Yep. And you're busy right through Christmas time.
Yes.
Excellent, yeah, because I did an episode not too long ago about Gettysburg at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And I actually did walk by the house here, and yeah, some
Yeah.
nice decorations out
Oh,
there.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
We try to do seasonal stuff, and I get a good crack in here with the Valentine's Day.
You're right. Valentine's Day is well coming up this Friday.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm not sure we're gonna have it out by Friday or not, but all right. Hey, I do thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time. It's a
very much.
pleasure meeting you.
Nice
Have a
meeting
great
you.
one.
You too. Take care. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks. Have a good one, folks.
I certainly hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoy going to historical places and meeting with subject matter experts on whatever historical place we're at. And there's no doubt about it, the Tillie Pierce house, which is now a functioning bed and breakfast, is a historical place. She was a remarkable young lady who, in many ways, just happened to be at the right place at the right time on so many important events during the Battle of Gettysburg. And her book, even though it's only about 115 or so pages, is one of the few books that detail what it was like to be a civilian during the Battle of Gettysburg. And as I mentioned, she just happened to be at the right place at the right time for so many events, from really being ordered to leave town at the behest of her parents for her own safety, walking across Cemetery Hill as the 11th Corps artillery is setting up, and them advising her to get on her way to avoid counter-battery fire, stopping off at the home that would be Meade's headquarters, and being there in the final hours for General Weed as he was mortally wounded on July 2nd is just amazing. She walked across the battlefield after the battle was over. And I just want to read a quick passage from the conclusion chapter of her book, because what she says here really sums up how I feel about the Gettysburg battlefield. Quote, "To enter into detail concerning the present appearance of the battlefield is not my desire. It must be seen and studied to be appreciated. Whoever can should not fail to visit the place. Annually, it is becoming more and more beautiful. The positions of the several corps and regiments are marked by the finest sculpture of which art and science are capable. Avenues are open so that the visitor can pass all along the line of the terrible conflict and at the same time learn from the inscriptions on the beautiful monuments who were engaged and at what period of the battle. The national cemetery wherein repose the heroic dead has become a marvel of loveliness. Baptized with the blood of patriots, dedicated in the immortal words of Lincoln, nurtured and guarded by a grateful people, this spot, for all time to come, cannot be other than the nation's shrine of American virtue, valor, and freedom. Tillie Pierce really does sum up the Gettysburg battlefield with those few words. For Civil War Reports, I am your War of the Rebellion reporter, Brian Thomas Kopak. Until next time, thank you for watching. And if you like what you saw today, please hit the subscribe button. Give a thumbs up. Also, notify your friends. Let them know about this channel and ask them to subscribe as well. If you like, you may leave a question or a comment below, and perhaps I will answer your question in a future episode of Civil War Reports. Until next time, please keep the history alive.